In a lot of Eastern thought, and really actually where you could in some ways say Eastern non-duality, Eastern mysticism, India, a lot of the teachings over the thousands of years. You look at some of the yogic practices, and you also look at teachings like A Course in Miracles. There's a fundamental idea that separation is really the source of all discomfort and challenges and pain. This belief in separation from the all, from God, from consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Now, how that separation plays out is very often this I am the body idea. So in A Course in Miracles, there's this chapter called The Hero of the Dream, and it calls the body the hero of the dream, and that all dreams have at the central part of it, all games of life, when I say dreams, we're talking about the dream nature of life. Like life was like a movie. So all storylines have at its very core and foundation the body. Now, as we have talked about family dynamics, or we're going to go further into family dynamics, we could see where we're going to put it in the book in terms of a timeline. It's important to understand that we're all born into this. So this I am the body, we seek out union with other bodies, which is really where this sex drive and sex impulse comes from. It's just we've looked at where it starts and how it's all the way up through the childhood, through adolescence. But at the fundamental, even the birth of the body is separate in the world. The sex drive is, first in its fundamental nature, is about procreation. And in the earlier writings of A Course in Miracles and some of Helen Schuckman's original notes, it's talking about the really only, if you want to say, usefulness of sex is procreation. Outside of that, everyone should love everyone. But the difficulty is when we think we're a body, we seek out union with other bodies to try to acquire, get from, manipulate, be above, play power games with, get love from, withhold love from. So all of these structures are all related to the body. Now, in my own journey, where it started was I didn't realize that early on, because of that societal conditioning, that the spiritual drive and the drive to seek God and to live a life of extending love and the miraculous and knowing my true nature, that in some ways got sidetracked. So think of it as like an impulse within us, and it gets routed into the world, into bodies, into sex, alcohol, partying, acquiring, the gain, the hunt, whatever you want to call it, that people call it. That's why in A Course in Miracles it says all physical impulses are really misguided miracle impulses. So all of that sexual impulse to, I need to find love, or I need to find or get more sex, or whether it's a power structure or whatever it is, all of that is really the call from within all of us to express ourselves as spirit and to know ourselves as spirit. So it gets collapsed and it gets confused because we live in a world that is constantly sexualizing, and that sex seems to be the barometer of value, of power, of money and abundance and manipulation and status and all of this. And it's a perfect domain for the ego, the voice for separation, to play out. So once we start to realize that, we start to allow sex to be used differently for us. It's not like sex is good or bad. It's really nothing. It's neutral. We bring to it our wounds, our hopes, our dreams, all of this to it, and it really doesn't deserve that. It's in an intimate relationship, it could be used as an expression of love. But if you withhold it just for the person that you love and have sex with, and you withhold it from the rest of the world, now it's being used. It's being used for separation of I only love you, and I'll be okay with maybe hating out the world, and then it misses this idea that we should all learn to love everyone. I don't mean in a sexual way, though. I mean with an open heart and from understanding and seeing that we're all connected through consciousness, through the divine mind. And ultimately, our goal is to see that and to relate that way. Sex is a great teacher for showing us those unresolved places in our past where we still use it to solidify ourselves as a body and to strengthen our view of ourselves and make ourselves bigger in our own eyes or in the eyes of the world. And when we use sex for that way, it'll always result in pain. And that's what I started to realize. I would read a lot of this stuff, but I didn't really want to live it. Because you have to realize I was also reading this stuff in my teenage years. So I had to play out well over a decade of my life to 15 years of my life of chasing and acquiring and drama and headaches and fights and loss of love and broken hearts and breaking hearts and all that stuff. They finally get to this place of, well, you know what? Please show me another way of using sex and the body. And we come to this place that the body itself is like a teacher or a teaching device that in and of itself, it's neutral. It takes orders from the mind and it does what the mind guides it to. So what you start to realize is bodies that are always chasing after sex, they do it in the name of, it's just my sex drive. But they don't realize it because of all of this conditioning of the mind, of beliefs and separation, of identity, of worth, of how the world views me, and seeking love from mother, love from father, the love we didn't get, all of that makes sex and gives meaning to sex that is way beyond what it's worth. Because as a neutral teaching device, we could use it for separation. We could use it to learn to transcend separation. And that's ultimately what the evolutionary process of this idea for myself has become, and why I would say culminating in a really happy marriage and fulfillment. So that's the journey that we all have the ability to take on if we're willing to see not just sex, but everything we use for separation, for glorification of me as a body and separate from the world. All of those mechanisms we use to really have the willingness to challenge them to be used for a different means.